أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد الله صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أنفسهم وأموالهم بأن لهم الجنة يقاتلون في سبيل الله فيقتلون ويقتلون وعدا عليه حقا في التوراة والإنجيل والقرآن ومن أوفى بعهده من الله فاستبشروا ببيعكم الذي بايعتم وذلك هو الفوز العظيم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala verily has bought from the believers themselves and their wealth with the cost of paradise. That they sell themselves and their wealth to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they have paradise. They fight in the path of Allah and they are killed in the path of Allah. And the promise of Allah is true as it has been promised in the Injil, the Evangel, and the Torah and the Holy Quran. And who is more fulfilling of His promise than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So bear good tidings in the great sale that you have made and the ultimate victory. This verse in the Holy Quran speaks about the requirements of the believer. That a question that is always in our mind is, what does Islam require of me? What is it that Islam wants from me? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created me, but what is it that He wants from me? This is a very important question that we need to look at. In this verse in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He has obviously created us and given us everything, but then on top of this, He has bought our lives and our wealth with the price of paradise. That this is the value of your soul and your life is paradise, so don't sell it for anything less. Don't sell it for anything cheaper. That in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains it in a form of trade. Why? Because the human being, in the simplicity of his mind, understands everything in the trade sense. That even if you speak to the simplest person, he'll have a view of the economy. He'll have a view of the economy based on his vocation, based on his line of work. He will have some sort of opinion of the economy. So what does Islam require of you? What does Islam require of me? It requires of me to live a happy and fulfilling life. This is the truth. That Islam is a religion that allows you to live this happy and fulfilling life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the instructions on how to live this happy and fulfilling life. Now, happiness doesn't flow from following our lower base selves, our desires. Some people think, if I want to be happy, I want to do what makes me feel happy. Unfortunately, that's not always the case, that it will lead to happiness. Imam Ali alayhi salam has a famous saying where he says that pleasure is momentary, but its consequences last forever. What a beautiful saying. It's such a short, small saying of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and this saying holds so much value. That this is the truth. That we have 5 seconds of joy and a lifetime of pain. Small momentary pleasure and a lifetime of consequence. That this does not necessarily lead to happiness. Some people love to live their life however they want to, and they think that this is what makes me happy. This is what I enjoy and this is what makes me happy. This is wrong. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ, in the Holy Quran, have you seen the one who takes his desire as his God? أَفَلَنْ تَكُونُ عَلَيْهِ وَكِيلًا. Do not take this one as a guardian. أَمْ تَحْسَبُ أَنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ يَسْمَعُونَ أَوْ يَعْقِلُونَ. Do you think that most of them understand or comprehend? إِنْهُمْ إِلَّا كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ السَّبِيلِ. That they are like cattle, nay, they are more astray than cattle. The one who takes his lower desires as his God. That this is what he follows in his life, his lower self. So we see that some people say ignorance is bliss. That if I'm ignorant, I'm happy. Saying that is just like saying, for example, I would rather be somebody that's mentally challenged. Because a mentally challenged person is happy. You slap a mentally challenged person, they're happy. You give them a candy, they're also happy. Just because they lack to understand the reality. That's why sometimes people think back and say, oh, I miss my childhood. That when I was a child, I had no worries. The difference is when you were a child, you knew that you had parents or guardians protecting you. And this is why you were ignorant and didn't mind being ignorant of what is around you. However, when you get older and you realize you're the front line, is ignorance still bliss? Would you rather sit there and just live it blindly in a world of ignorance? Obviously, nobody would. Nobody wants to be ignorant. They want to know the realities. They want to know what happens in this world. And this is the only way you can get a happy and fulfilling life. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the happy and fulfilling life is the life ala sirat al-mustaqim, the life on the righteous path. This is what Islam requires of you, to live a happy and fulfilling life on the righteous path. Why? Some people say, well, this doesn't make me happy that, for example, I can't listen to music. I feel that I have been restrained. It doesn't make me happy that I cannot eat, for example, pork or blood or any of the other things that are haram to eat or drink. I feel that I have been restrained. It doesn't make me happy that I must marry only one person. Or, for example, I don't even want to be in a marriage. I want to be in an open relationship, for example. I just want to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend and just have an open relationship. This is how I'll be happy. The reality is we see the outcome of all of these things that we're speaking about, the negative outcome. And the negative outcome of these things obviously is clear. One who listens to music gets damaged mentally and psychologically. This is something clear. On the surface level, you notice that a person who listens to music can't help but dance all the time, or he's always got erratic actions, okay? Or he has a distorted view of the reality of life. This is true. Go and watch the people that walk in the street, the ones who listen to music, or the ones that have their headphones on. If they're listening to love music, they look depressed. If they're listening to rap music, they want to start a fight. If they're listening to God knows what. And you can see it by the way that they walk, by the way that they look when they have their little headphones in their ear. That's one. When we look at the other things, for example, somebody says, oh, I want to open, why should I restrain myself? I want to open relationship. Go and have a look at the problems that are caused by this. The marriage that we enter, obviously, without going into details of marriage, is a contractual bond in the realm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the realm of reality. That we have this bond that we must keep with our life partner. It's not about breaking or destroying this bond. And when you do break or destroy this bond, look at the pain that happens. Look at the pain that happens, for example, when married couples fight. Look at the pain that happens when divorce happens. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? أَبْغَضْ حَلَالْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ is the divorce. That's the most hated halal in the eyes of Allah, that even they say that the arsh of Allah, the throne of Allah, shakes. And the realm of authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shakes when a divorce happens. That this is something that's so bad. Why? Look at the outcome of divorce. Look at the outcome. The husband and the wife, the ones that divorce, they never have a happy life after this. And the children are lost in between. It's something that's so bad. So Islam gives you a happy life by giving you freedom from falling into these problems of life. It gives you the freedom by giving you a solution. And by giving you a preventative measure rather than a fix. A preventative measure, and that way you can live a happy and fulfilling life. The most important thing that we need to look at is obviously, what is the value of a thing? The value of the creation or anything is the level of productivity it gives its owner. This is the value of anything. So for example, if we have a look at what is the value of a plant, the value of a plant is it bears fruit, or it's a flower and it looks nice. Otherwise it's classified as a weed and it needs to be destroyed. What's the value of an animal? A horse, for example, is a beast of burden. And this beast of burden, if we can use it as a riding animal to place things on, it has value. If we can't use it for that, then what do? We terminate it, as we saw in recently the controversy about the racehorses and the termination of the racehorses. And this isn't looked upon as a crime, a humanitarian crime. No, this is looked upon as something that's normal. The animal's not needed. We cull it. Too many kangaroos on this farm, we cull them. Too many pigs on this farm, we cull them. This is the way that it works. In the same way, we look at the human being. If the human being is not obeying its master and is not productive to what it has been created for, then what value does it have? None. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that I have not created jinn or mankind with the exception that they worship. Thus, if they are not worshipful beings, then they lack value. This is the reality. The core thing that Islam requires of us, the core thing, how do we attain all of these things? How am I going to answer this simple question of what does Islam require of me by going into all these facets and realms of Islam? Instead, we'll go to the root. And the root and foundation and the base of the requirement of Islam is intent. Your intent is everything. This is what it's about. The whole religion is about intent. Islam requires your intention. There's a hadith of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. He says, صاحب النية الصادقة صاحب القلب السليم. The one with the true intention is the one that has the content heart. He says, لأن سلامة القلب من هواجس المحظورات بتخليص النية لله في الأمور كلها. So the clear intention is the intention that we gather by moving away all other intentions, the clear intention towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is what gives the qalb al-salim, the contrite heart or the content heart. In another hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. So the actions, all actions are by their intention. He says, وَلِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله ومن كانت هجرته إلى دنيا يصيبها أو امرأة يتزوجها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in this specific hadith, he talks about migration. That when the believers had to migrate from Mecca to Medina, he says that whoever migrates for Allah, then his migration is for Allah, based on the intention. However, whoever migrates for economic status, then maybe he will get that economic status. That he's migrating for money, he'll get that money. Or if he migrated to get married, then maybe he will get married, but his intention based on the migration is what he will be migrating for. So we notice that the intention is everything. When Rasulullah says, Al-a'malu bin-niyat, he's showing that based on the intention, this is what the core of the action is. So we have a look and we see at the time of the Holy Prophet, there's a narration that when two parties come to fight, when the believers and the unbelievers come to fight, and the swords fall between them, the angels come down and begin to write down. They write down, so-and-so is fighting because he hates the other tribe. So-and-so is fighting because he saw a pretty woman with the other tribe and he wants her. So-and-so is fighting liwajhillah. So each one, based on their intention, this is the reward that they get. And in fact, there was a famed martyr or a famed shaheed during the time of the Holy Prophet that was known as Shaheed al-Himar. That this person was the martyr of the donkey. Why? Because he saw a donkey with the other party that he wanted, therefore he went to battle to acquire this donkey. Thus when he died, the Holy Prophet says this man is not a shaheed fi sabilillah aw liwajhillah. This man is Shaheed al-Himar. That he is a shaheed and he is a martyr because he was after this donkey. So, based on this intention, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards. This is what it comes down to. The clarity of the intention that you have. So we see that the Holy Prophet says that نية المؤمن خير من عمله ونية الكافر شر من عمله. Why? That the intention of the believer is better than his action. And the intention of the non-believer is worse than his action. Because the intention of the believer, for example, a believer might solemnly say, between him and himself, that, oh Allah, if I get this much money, I will build a mosque. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him the reward of building a mosque. In fact, there's a narration where a person does all of these a'mal, these prayers, and the angels bring them up. They write down his deeds and they say, Ya Allah, this person has done all of these prayers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, throw them, scrap them. They say, why? Oh, Allah, he says he had no intention, no good intention while he was doing it. He was either doing it riyā, or he was showing off, showing people that this is what I'm doing, or for whatever other reason, he was exercising in this manner. Whatever it was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, throw these deeds, but then he says, reward him for this, for something completely different. So the angels say, Ya Allah, we didn't see this man commit this action that you're rewarding him for. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, but he had the intention. He had the intention. So what it comes down to, alaykum as-salam, is the intention that you have. This intention is everything. The believer's intention is better than his deed. Why? Because sometimes he might have the intention to build a mosque but never build that mosque. In fact, there's a narration where it says if the believer has the intention to wake up for Salat al-Layl and he goes to sleep and doesn't wake up, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, write him the reward of Salat al-Layl. Because he intended to wake up, however he didn't end up waking up. This is the importance of the intention. That you will get that reward for not even waking up. You will get the reward of building a mosque with not even doing it, and so forth. There's another narration that says that if a person sees a wealthy person that spends their money in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this person that has no money says, oh Allah, if I had the money I would do as this person does. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, reward this person in the same way that the guy with the money is rewarded. If his intention is clear. That imagine, you don't even have to spend your money in that way, but you see it. You see somebody doing it and you wish to be. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, and then there is another person that sees somebody that spends their money in a trashy manner, in a bad manner. So someone, for example, like a good example is the Sultan of Brunei, that decided to buy a McLaren F1 in a different color for each day of the week. Because, you can't get in the same color one every day. And so people know that you have a couple of them. So he bought different colored ones so he can have one for each day of the week. So if someone saw that and said, wow, man, this guy's good. He knows how to spend his money. If I had billions of dollars, that's what I would do. Or like Steve Jobs' yacht, for example, that he never got to see. That if you say that this is the sort of money that I would spend, if I had that money, this is the way I would spend it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the rank of that person. Imagine that. This is why the intention of the believer is better than his action, and the intention of the disbeliever is worse than his action. Why? The disbeliever, like for example, we look at the tyrant of Iraq, he used to say that if I kill an ant, I feel upset, I cry if I step on an ant and kill it. However, if somebody goes against my regime, then I will kill each and every one of them. I will kill 10,000 of you and I wouldn't even shed a tear. He says, sorry, I wouldn't even get one grey hair. So this person had the intent to kill much more than he actually did. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward him in such a manner. That this is what he'll get in the hereafter, the punishment of killing this many people that he intended to kill. However, he never had the ability or the power to kill these people. This is the importance of intention. In fact, in the battle of Siffin, Imam Ali alayhi salam, after the battle, one of the companions comes up and says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I have a brother who wishes he could be with us, who wished he could be in the battle of Siffin with us and fight with us. But he wasn't here. And so the Amir al-Mu'mineen says, really, is that the desire he had to be with us? He says, yes. He says, then verily he was with us. And verily, he will be rewarded as if he fought with us with his sword, because he didn't have the ability to be there with good reason. He says, furthermore, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, furthermore, that in the loins of these warriors are people who will come in the future and uphold and protect the religion. This is why when we say, Labbaika ya Hussein, and we say that even though we're not here, that even before we were created, when we heard about Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, we said, Labbaika ya Hussein. That this is the feeling that we have, and thus, inshaAllah, based on our intention, will be rewarded. In the same way, when these mentally challenged people come and tell you, Happy New Year, Happy Islamic New Year, that don't know and have never heard of the narration of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, when Imam al-Sadiq is crying over his grandfather from the first day of Muharram. He's crying over Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So somebody comes up and says, Ya Aba Abdullah, because Imam al-Sadiq's kunya was also Aba Abdullah. He says, Ya Aba Abdullah, why are you crying over your grandfather? And it's not even the Ashir. You said that he was killed on the Ashir. So he says Imam al-Sadiq began to cry kal al-Thaqla, that he began to cry like a mother who has lost its child. And he says, why are you crying? He says, do you not see that on the first night of Muharram, the angels bring out the shirt of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and they place it up in the heavens, and we and our Shia see it with our esoteric vision. with the heart's eye, with the basira, we see the shirt of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. This is why the Shia becomes sad at this time. That this is within our hearts. This is something inherent that we become sad during this time when Muharram starts. We see that the way for us to repair our intention, because we really need to repair our intention. You notice that, for example, in every action that we do, and we'll talk about how sometimes our intention may be corrupted. There is a beautiful hadith known as dua maqarim al-akhlaq. And this dua is such an important dua. In fact, we have so many du'as. Sahif al-Sajadiyya, in Mafatih al-Jinan. All of these du'as that we should... I remember a person I used to know, he used to have Sahif al-Sajadiyya, and every day after Salah he would read one dua. He said, just in case, because I know I'm not going to actually sit down and say I'm going to read this dua today, but I'll leave it next to the prayer mat so I can read one every day. That's a very good method to take, because there's a lot of these good dua and you don't know when that dua that you say is going to be accepted. Dua maqarim al-akhlaq is a beautiful dua. It's such a fantastic dua. It's all about repairing yourself and your akhlaq, your mannerisms, and your and the way that your attitude is. That it helps you repair yourself. In this dua, when it speaks about the intention, he says, Imam Zayn al-Abidin says, Allahumma waffir bilutfika niyati. That he says to him, Oh Allah, promote with your kindness my intent. Fulfill my intent. The wording that is used in this dua, he tells Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he says, promote my intent, fulfill my intent. Why? Because, for example, when we get up to pray, and we say takbiratul ihram, Allahu Akbar, this takbiratul ihram, salam wa rahmatullah, places us in a state of sanctity when we begin our prayers. The problem is, the second you say this takbiratul ihram, subhanallah, you feel that every thought comes to your head. Your electricity bill comes to your head. Your school assignments come to your head. The things, the lectures you have to attend in university come to your head. Work tomorrow comes to your head. So many things, all of these thoughts come into your head, and it distorts your intention for prayer. It distorts your intention. All of these little thoughts distort your intention, and so the Imam says that, oh Allah, promote my intention, fulfill my intention, make it clear, true and correct. So he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him that ability, but in a special manner. He says, oh Allah, the word tawfir or the word waffar means to promote or to fulfill. And then he says, bilutfika. He says, with your kindness. Now the word lutf has many meanings. Some of the meanings are subtlety or subtle kindness. But in this particular state, it's possible the Imam wanted to convey the meaning of lutf in two different ways. One is, the meaning of lutf is friendship. There's a meaning where it says that this is friendship, and there's a meaning that means help. So it's like in this verse of the dua, the Imam is asking, oh Allah, through your kindness and subtlety, through your help, I have no ability to further myself without you. Take me by your hand and elevate my intent so my intention can be clear, so my intention can be fulfilled. You see, when we look at every action that we commit, any action that we do, the intention provides the environment of the action and provides the color of the action. Because any action in its essence is like a transparent glass of water. Like we've got this glass of water here. From a distance, if the water wasn't moving, you can't tell if the cup is empty or full, because the water is transparent, just like every action. Because we take the action based on what we see, the outwardness of the action. So if we see, for example, somebody praying, we believe that they are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the way that we see it. However, what's going on inside their head may be a completely different thing. So this, in essence, the action is transparent. The thing that colors the action or shows what the action really is the intent. For example, you're with your friends, group of friends, somebody comes and swears at you. They disrespect you. You can do many things. One, you can beat them, but that would be wrong. Two, you could be forbearant. and say that I'll bear this and I'll just take it on the chin and leave. Now, the issue is, what is your intent? Is your intention that I'm going to accept this disrespect to me so my friends can see how forbearant I am? Or my friends can see how patient I am? Or is your intention that I'm going to be forbearant for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is the difference. See, from an outward way, from outwardly, we see that the action that you have committed, which is to be forbearant, is an action that is good. So we say, wow, this guy is a really good guy. Why? Somebody disrespected him and he could have beat him, but instead of bashing him, no, he just stood back and he was forbearant. But the difference comes in the intent. For example, when we're praying. If I'm praying and I'm praying fast, I'm doing my Formula 1 prayer, and somebody walks in and say, I slow down, and I begin to pray slowly. And then when I begin to pray slowly, it's for that person. Technically, Islamically, your intention is faulty and your salah is batil. If you have any riyā in your prayers, if you have any of that intent in your prayer that I'm praying to show somebody how religious I am, or to show somebody how good I am. This is the problem. For example, we do a good deed. We do a good deed for somebody and we expect a worldly return. There's a verse in the Holy Quran that says, قَوْلٌ مَعْرُوفٌ وَمَغْفِرَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن صَدَقَةٍ يَتَّبَعَهَا أَذًى وَاللَّهُ غَنِيٌّ حَلِيمٌ. That if you say a good word, just a good word, like Islam rahmatullah, we have in Islam that even a smile is charity. Now obviously when I say a smile is charity, I'm speaking to the brothers, not the sisters. Sisters should never smile at any foreigner, because men always take it in the wrong way. So for the brothers, no, to smile is charity. This is part of charity. In fact, it's good for a man to be humble and a woman to be proud. A woman should be proud and arrogant. A young lady should be proud and arrogant, not as in arrogant within herself, but proud in front of the people. Why? This shows that there's a barrier. That I've put a barrier. I don't want no foreign men to speak to me. This is the truth. All the guys know this, right? So if, however, she puts on a smiley face and shows humility, this conveys the wrong message to the opposite sex. This is something that's an Islamic principle that Imam Ali alayhi salam speaks about. And if we don't want to take the word of Imam Ali alayhi salam, it's psychologically proven. However, the core that we're trying to hit at is that it's better to smile to someone and say a good word than do a good deed for somebody and then remind them of it. For example, I lent somebody a jacket for their wedding. And then for the next 10 years, I keep reminding them, say, how'd that jacket go? Good jacket, wasn't it? You looked pretty smart in that jacket. Jacket, until you feel like taking the jacket and throwing it at their head. The point is that if you do a good deed and you follow it up with that, this is very problematic. There's a problem in the intention. And therefore that deed becomes nothing. That deed becomes less than nothing. In fact, it then turns around to something bad. It could become a sin. It could become a sin. So when we do somebody a good deed, you know, when you do something good, for example, I help somebody out. And then I get upset that they didn't say thank you. Which is right. They should say thank you without a doubt. However, if I'm doing it fi sabilillah, if I have the intention I'm doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't want thanks from them. I don't want anything from them. Because I did it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not dealing with you, I'm dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the intention that we need to have. Not that I've done this, I'll scratch my back, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. This is not the way it works. This is not the way Islam works. That when we do something, we need to have the proper intent for that action to be accepted. Because the action may be correct. For example, how many people go to Hajj every year? Millions of people go to Hajj. And they perform the Hajj correctly. However, is it accepted or not? That's another story. And this is all based on the intention. What's my intent? With every action that I do, what is my intent? Even if I scratch my nose, what is my intent? This is what it comes down to. It's all about the intent. When I do a good deed, you notice if you do a good deed for somebody, but you do it fi sabilillah, you don't care if they thank you. Because you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reward you. It doesn't bother you if you do this good deed. You don't feel that, oh my God, I did this good deed and look at this person, they're ingrates, they're etc., etc. And of course, we have narrations on the other hand that says that the one who doesn't thank the creation doesn't thank the Creator. So if someone does a good deed for you on the other side, of course you should thank them. But what we're working on here is your intention for the deeds that you do. The deeds that you do in your household, the deeds that you do among your friends, etc., etc. This is the importance of the intention. Another narration of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because there's some things that we look at. For example, when you look at Waqa'at al-Taf, when we look at Karbala and what happened in Karbala, the Sayyid last night, he mentioned that if you look at it from a logistical point of view, it was a very small battle compared to the battles of the world. And it was a battle that took place in a land that had nothing. It was a strip of desert, a couple of palm trees, and a little bit of a river. Nothing else. It wasn't like the bombing of Dresden. It wasn't like Nagasaki and Hiroshima. There weren't big cities, massive destruction, wholesale destruction. It was nothing like that. All it was 73 companions of the Imam and the enemies. And in fact, in the some of the Sunni history books, you have a look and it says Imam al-Hussein stood up against Yazid. They had a war with Umar ibn Sa'ad. Imam al-Hussein was killed. Both sides buried their dead, and that's it. Let's move on to the next topic. This is it. It's as simple as that. This is the way that they write it. But what is the difference between Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and his companions and Umar ibn Sa'ad? If we can even put it on a level of comparison. But there's an important point that we need to mention. And that important point is, for example, when Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam dug a moat around his tents and lit a fire to protect the tent from the enemy, somebody calls out, Ya Hussein, asta'jalta ala nar? Oh Hussein, are you hastening towards the fire of hell? And so the Imam does a dua against this man and says to him, it is you who is hastening to the fire of hell, and his horse bucks him off into the fire and he burns. Jahannam ba'sa al-masir. However, when Umar ibn Sa'ad tells the riders to mount, he says, Ya khuyulullah irkabi. That he says, oh, riders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mount your horses. So this man is using the name of Allah. The action looks like these people are getting up for jihad. What's the difference? What's the difference? The difference lies in the intent. Furthermore, the level of intent. The purer the intention, fi sabilillah, you see that your action lives on forever. We'll have a look that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, La qawl illa bil amal. That there is no saying except for action. And he says, وَلَا قَوْلُ وَلَا عَمَلْ إِلَّا بِالنِّيَّةِ. That there is no saying nor action except with intention. Must have intention. And then he says, وَلَا قَوْلُ وَلَا عَمَلْ وَلَا نِيَّةِ إِلَّا بِإِصَابَةِ السُّنَّةِ. That there is no saying, nor action, nor intention if you are not, or if you have not sook the sunnah of Allah, the sunnah of Rasulullah. The sunnah of Rasulullah is the tradition of Rasulullah. This is the religion. Sunnah isn't a party. It never was a party. It never was a people, and it never has been mentioned as a people. It's grammatically, Islamically, whatever you want, incorrect to say, I am a Sunni. You can't even say that. How can you say, I am a tradition? I am a tradition of the Prophet. You can't. As opposed to someone saying, for example, I'm a Shia of Ali. I'm of the party of Ali. This is the difference. The word can't be said. However, what we have in this tradition is that the Holy Prophet is saying that there is no saying, nor action, nor intention without seeking the sunnah of Rasulullah. This is what it's all about. So when we talk about, for example, the people who fought against Amir al-Mu'mineen in the Battle of Siffin, the army of Muawiyah, who used to shout out the same things that the army of Imam Ali was shouting out, Allahu Akbar, etc., etc. The thing is, these people with their saying and their action and their intent were not going towards the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the key difference. That their intent wasn't clear. And this is what's important. We need to understand the intent and the importance of the intent, in fact, on the Day of Judgment. Because some people, for example, they'll say, all right, there's Muslims that do good, but there's kuffar that do good. Who are the kuffar that do good? We see, for example, Bill Gates cured polio in India or something like that, whatever he's done, or he vaccinated half of Africa. It's a good action, like the transparent glass of water. However, what was the intent behind that action? This is all that matters. That imagine it in this manner. Imagine that you live in a city that has a king and you hate this king and he hates you. And then you decide to go and clean the streets. Do you think the king is going to accept your action of cleaning the streets? No. He's going to tell you to burn in hell. Because you're not on good terms with him. We are in the realm and universe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we don't have a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the action means nothing. The verse in the Holy Quran says on the day of judgment, وَقَدِمْنَا إِلَى مَا عَمِلُوا مِنْ عَمَلٍ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ هَبَاءً مَنْثُورًا. And on this day, they will come with all of their actions and we will make them like scattered dust. The Mufassirin say that the density of this scattered dust that is mentioned in this verse is like when you see sometimes when the sun comes through the window of your room and you see the dust that's coming off the floor slowly swirling towards the rays of the sun. Even if you put your hand out to grab it, you can't grab anything material. However, you can see that scattered dust. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does to the deeds of the people without intention. The deeds of the people that don't go by Sunnat Rasulullah. This is what happens to their deeds. The ones who do not follow Rasulullah and the Ahlul Bayt, this is what happens. Simple as that. Because the Sunnah of Rasulullah is the Ahlul Bayt. That's it. You want to learn the tradition of Rasulullah, you don't go to Zayd and Uwaid. You can't go to this guy and that guy. Rasulullah himself says, and we mentioned it yesterday so many times and reiterated the importance of following the Holy Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. And there's no other path. There's no other way. This is what it is. It is what it is. We have a look at the example of Shaykh Abbas al-Qummi. Shaykh Abbas al-Qummi is a scholar who is most known for compiling Mafatih al-Jinan. Because Mafatih al-Jinan is a compilation and we see it throughout our homes as the second most important book after the Holy Quran. Everybody has it. Has one of these books and he has that. We're obviously not looking at Nahj al-Balagha as a book of knowledge, but this book of dua, wherever you go into houses, you won't find Nahj al-Balagha, but you'll find Mafatih al-Jinan. Mafatih al-Jinan is everywhere. Why did this book become such a great book? And it's not something that he wrote. It's not an idea he came up with, no. He compiled these narrations of actions to do and he placed it into a book. What made it great was the fact that he done it with intention fi sabilillah. And the proof of this is the fact, the popularity of this book. How many other books is there like it? Thousands. Thousands of books of dua that have been compiled by a million different people, but not like the one that was compiled by Shaykh Abbas al-Qummi. This is the special thing about Shaykh Abbas al-Qummi. In fact, there's a nice story about Shaykh Abbas al-Qummi. There's another great book known as Manazil al-Akhirah. It's a beautiful book. If you can get your hands on it, it has been translated to English and Arabic. It was originally written in Farsi. And this book is such a great book. It speaks about life beyond the grave. However, with this book, there was once a scholar at a certain mosque, and he used to, at the time of Shaykh Abbas al-Qummi, he used to give lectures. And he used to take this book, Manazil al-Akhirah, and use it as his source to give the lectures. And who used to attend these lectures? The father of Shaykh Abbas al-Qummi used to sit down and attend the lectures and listen to the lectures. So he'd hear the lectures and say, wow, these are fantastic lectures. What a great source that he's getting it from. But he didn't know what the source was that he was getting it from. So one day, the father of Shaykh Abbas al-Qummi, who wasn't a sheikh, he was a man that was known as Muhammad Rida al-Qummi. So this man, the father of Shaykh Abbas, he said to his son, that why don't you give lectures like this man gives lectures? He has the most fantastic ideas and the lectures that he gives are so great. So Shaykh Abbas didn't say anything. He didn't tell him that the book that he's reading from is the book that I've written. In fact, he stayed quiet and humble. Why? Because his intention to create and write this book was fi sabilillah. And all of his books, and this is why they're out there. This is why there's so many of them, because when somebody does something fi sabilillah, purely and wholly, with this sort of intention, you will notice that when their intention is clear, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes them eternal. He makes them eternal. What do you mean by them being eternal? They'll always be mentioned. Everyone is eternal in the hereafter. You either go to paradise, inshaAllah, or Jahannam, wal-'ayadu billah. However, the memory of you, if you are somebody that puts your hand in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that remains. That absolutely remains. And we see this through Abu Abdullah al-Husayn salawatullahi alayh. We see that because of the clarity of intention, and because he worked solely and wholly fi sabilillah, as obviously he's an imam that is ma'soom, and obviously I don't feel that I'm in a worthy position to even speak about the intent of Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. However, just so we can learn from what happened in Karbala, it is important to mention the clarity of intent. That these people had the proper intention. And they worked in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why we see that the memory of Imam al-Hussein is immortal. We see that the memory of the ashab of Imam al-Hussein is immortal because they placed their hand in the hand of Imam al-Hussein with this intent. Now this is the key and core thing that we're talking about, is the importance of intent. However, we have to be on absolute guard with our intent and our intention. We have to be on guard. We have to maintain this guard like a person, for example. And most importantly, we need to have tawakkul ala Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This tawakkul is key with clear intent. And we need to always work on our intent and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the proper intent. Because this is what the whole religion is. It's all about intent. That's it. You need the proper intent to be able to achieve the great heights, to be able to free yourself from the fire of hell and enter the realm of paradise. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We see with the words of Imam al-Hussein, and just a few fine pointers from what happened in Karbala, that can speak or tell us volumes about the degree of a person that Imam al-Hussein was alayhi salam. Some people, for example, just to clear something up, they believe that the Imams aren't of the status of the Prophets, that the Prophets are of a higher status than the Imams, and this is obviously incorrect, that the Imams are of a higher status than all of the Prophets with the exception of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the most basic proof of this is the hadith of the Holy Prophet where he says, Al-Hasan wal-Husayn Sayyiday Shababi Ahl al-Jannah, that they are the masters of the youth of paradise. And obviously there is only youth in paradise. And when we look at who is in paradise, is it other than the prophets? So if they are the masters of the prophets, they are the ones with the key and head position, obviously they have this rank above the prophets, obviously with the exception of Rasulullah khayr khalqillah. However, we see that Imam al-Hussein, we spoke about one of the traditions of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, that spoke about the climate, the political and Islamic climate at the time when he was leaving to Karbala. And in this, he starts speaking about how the world has changed. And he says, إن هذه الدنيا قد تغيرت وتنكرت. That he says this world has changed and it has gone back on itself. He says that we see that the villainous live the good lives, and we see that he says ألا ترون أن الحق لا يعمل به, that do you not see that the truth, nobody is working by the truth or the haqq, that this means nothing. And then he says وأن الباطل لا ينتهى عنه, and you see that falsehood, no one is stopping anyone from going against falsehood. He says لا يرغب المؤمن في لقاء الله محقا, that the believer starts wishing and praying for death. He wants to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so truthfully in his heart that he doesn't want to live in this world anymore of what the world has become. He says فَإِنِّي لَا أَرَى الْمَوْتِ إِلَّا حَيَاةٍ. Imam al-Hussein sallallahu alayhi, this is what he says, that I do not see death except as life. That this is the life, this is the true life that we are to have. More so during a period like the period that the Imam was living in of the time. وَالْحَيَاةِ مَعَ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا بَرَمَ. And life with the tyrants and tyranny is nothing but boredom. And then he says, الناس عبيد الدنيا والدين لعق على ألسنتهم يحوتونه ما ضرت معايشهم فإذا محسوا في البلاء قل الديانون. He says, and the people are slaves of this world, and they only give a lip service to religion. They follow religion wherever their livelihoods, if it takes them to their livelihood, this is where they follow religion. However, if they are placed in a time of test, you will see who the true believers are and who are not. When we have a look and we see how lame the intent was of the people who fought Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, it was actually a quote by George Jordak, a Christian Lebanese scholar, who says that we see that when the people went to kill Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, when they went to the court of Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, they were fighting over who will get more money. And so he started saying, depending on whose head you bring me, this is how much money you will get. And in fact, on the bodies of the enemies of Imam al-Hussein, the historians write that some of them went to fight Imam al-Hussein for just a handful of dates. That's all they found with them. That Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad gave them a handful of dates. That's it, nothing more. This is what they sold their life for. This is what sort of intent they have. However, when we look at the companions of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and you see the clarity of intent, what do we see? That on the night of Ashura, when Imam al-Hussein turns off the lights and says, you are free to leave to save you from embarrassment, what do we see? They begin to cry, they begin to wail. Ya Aba Abdullah, that we will never leave you. Even if they kill us and they cut us up and they burn us 1,000 times, we will never leave you. Another companion says that even if I knew that this life was the only life and there is no hereafter, then I don't want life after you, Abu Abdullah. Life means nothing to me after you. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and the status of Imam al-Hussein. Just a small image of pictures of what happened in Karbala that show us the status of who Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is. And it's something that you seriously cannot comprehend. Who are these Imams? Who are these Ahlul Bayt? And what they stood up for. We have a look at the example of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Nabi Ibrahim is known as Khalilullah. Nabi Ibrahim reached the highest status, that in fact he is the next highest status prophet after Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him to slaughter and sacrifice his son, he took him to a place known as Mina. This place, which the brothers that have been to Hajj know where Mina is and what Mina is, the meaning of the word Mina actually comes from the word Muna. And it's actually sometimes called Muna, and this means your intimate desire, intent. Intent comes down to that. Intent isn't something that you can create. You know, we say, Asalli farad al-maghrib wajib and qurbat, for example. We say it as the intent, but the actual intent is formulated on your actions. Where does that intent develop? It's not something that I would say, I'm putting it into my head now that I'm in a state of khushu'. Allahu Akbar, I'm in a state of khushu'. No. That state of khushu' comes on its own based on the actions that you commit. This is something that's within the depth that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. وَتَعْلَمْ خَائِنَةُ الْأَعْيُنِ وَمَا تَخْفِ الصُّدُورِ. And so this place was called Muna because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam to slaughter and sacrifice his son, he obeyed immediately. And Ismail obeyed immediately. And in fact, Ismail says, you will see that I will be of the patient ones. And he says, oh Father, so it makes it easier on us, blindfold me and tie my hands just in case my instinct kicks in. I'm a human being, I'm a prophet, but I'm a human being. And so Nabi Ibrahim does this for his son, but deep within the heart of Nabi Ibrahim was, oh Allah, allow me not to go ahead with this. Save my son. Deep within his heart, this is what his munah was. This is what he had within his heart, that this is something that's deep within me that he wouldn't say on his tongue. There's no way he would say it on his tongue. Nabi Ibrahim was of the greatest prophets alayhi salam. Would never say it on his tongue, but it was within his heart. What was in the heart of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein salawatullah alayhi? What was in the heart of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein when he accepted for his son, a son like Ali al-Akbar, to go out into battle? This is something that we really need to think about and understand, to see the ikhlas in the heart of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. That not for a moment did he turn back فَخُدْ حَتَّى تَرْضَى with the blood of his infant child. This is the comparison we need to look at, and the ikhlas and the intent of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Something that we cannot comprehend. No matter how much I speak about it, or we write about it, or we sit alone and think about it, to sit there and comprehend it, something that's beyond belief. Something that's very difficult. However, this gives us a small image and ideology on the basis of the ikhlas, the sincerity and genuinity of the intention of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. When we say about the companions of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, الَّذِينَ بَذَلُوا مُهَجَّهُمْ دُونَ الْحُسَيْنِ alayhi salam, the ones who gave their lifeblood for the Hussein. In fact, the clearer meaning of this lifeblood, the muhja, is specifically speaking about blood that is within the heart of the human being, that is within the heart of the creation. This blood that cannot be taken out, that even when you kill an animal and drain its blood, that blood in the muhja remains. That's the most valued blood, that even if you wanted to give it, you can't give it. Why? You'll be long dead before that comes out. That this is what they say about the companions of Abu Abdullah, that they gave their muhja for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. They gave that blood that cannot be given for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. This is what we see when we look at clarity of intent. And you see that their action has kept them alive for 14 centuries when they say kadhab al-maut. That death is a lie. Imam al-Hussein al-Husayni mukhallad. That Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is eternal. That this martyrdom of Abu Abdullah makes death into a lie. Who, after 14 centuries, gets remembered in the manner that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is remembered, that we see today. This is the gift and reward of clarity and sincerity of intention. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. ورحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة وأهدى ثوابها إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات بالخصوص أرواح أمواتكم جميعا والباذلين في هذا المكان. تسبق الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.